Today in this sacred place, Bodh Gaya, where our teacher, the complete and perfect Buddha, achieved Buddhahood. While we are holding the 18th Kaju Gunshi debate festival, I would like to welcome all of the Kempos, Geshe, spiritual master, as well as all of the people who've come to debate. The judges from all of the different traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, as well as all of the students, and particularly today, all of the lay people and monastics who have come on this occasion today. I would like to offer you an auspicious welcome in Tashi Delek. So this is the 18th time we've held this Gunshu. And from the beginning, when the Gunshu, the person who founded it, Lama Punsok, has come here today. Lama Punsok has, with great pure motivation for the teachings, he has really put hard work in. And at that time it began, it was just a few different shadras, but the number of students who have been participating have increased every year, as well as the and also all of the debates and the texts, and the debates have increased like the waxing moon. So it's just like when we begin something, we need to remember, if we have to think about how. So I'd like to offer a special thank you to Lama Kunsal for all his service. Two years ago, we began the competitions in collected topics, types of evidence, and types of mind. And so now this is the third year. And so it's in some ways this is the last year of this. So the 3 years of debating the collected topics and types of evidence. And so for that reason, during these 3 years, we have invited the judges from the different traditions, and I see that there's a great reason to invite them. The primary reason and purpose for inviting them is that the differences between these different traditions in Tibet is that there's differences in the traditions of the traditions of the teachings and the teachings of the lamas, the lineage, and so forth. But actually, we are all the same in being Buddhist teachings and accepting the Buddha as the source of refuge and the teacher. And so, in terms of the actuality, there is no difference between the Tibetan lineages. However, due to short-term differences in how the terminology is used and the way things are described. There are the different traditions, but since we do have these different lineages, it is important for all the traditions to be be harmonious and work well together. And if that is the foundation of the Buddhist teachings flourishing, and for that reasoning, we invite the great scholars from all the different traditions, and they and they are and they are now present as witnesses or as judges of our um, uh, work. And so in this way, this is like a sign of how we respect the different lineages and consider them to be very important. So in general, when you talk about judges, when you talk about someone who is somewhat outside, we need to be someone who is somewhat outside and who does not have a bias. Uh, and so primarily, if we had people from our the judges, we could have people from our own cheddars, but in order for it to it would be difficult for us to all to be comfortable and feel that they were not, that they were being impartial. We would think that maybe they were being more partial to their own monasteries, and because that different sort of motivation, we wouldn't be so comfortable, and so for that reason, and so if we invited judges from within our own lineage, then we would not feel so comfortable about it. And so in that so I don't have so much to say about that, but in any case, but today what we're doing it now is we're having to do the teachings on the 100 short instructions. Now this 100 short instructions, there are over 500 pages of the short 100 short instructions. And so because there are over 500 pages, I think if I, as in terms of giving the, just read it as a transition, then it's difficult for it to be something that will actually affect us and really move our minds. And so in that way, I'll give some of a teaching and instruction, give a little bit if I were to give a little bit of explanation, then recite a little bit, I think that'd be more benefit. And so for that reason, for 2 years, I've been teaching this, and now we have come to, we've only finished about 190 of the pages, and we still have quite a bit left. We probably have about 2/3 of the text left, and so for that reason, so when we talk about teaching instructions or teaching the Dharma, it's not easy. Either one would have to have the proficiency in practicing the Dharma, or you have to have some of the prajna that comes from listening, contemplation, wisdom, and then you can have the confidence to be able to teach. But I don't have those characteristics. So if I just sort of pretend, and though I have no qualities, pretend if I do, I might say something even though I don't have it. If I just sort of fake it and say something, then that is what I really have to do. And the reason for this is that, as you all know, when I was 7 years old, as you all know, I was just an ordinary child without any preparation. They recognized me as the Karmapa, and they brought me to the monastery. I didn't make any preparations. I had no preparations. And these days, with the trainings, you have to go through tests and examinations, and if you pass those, and if you're able to pass the examinations, only then can you get the position. But for me to gain the name title of Karmapa, first of all, was not something that I had qualities of abandoned realization or qualities of study. And there's someone saying, you have the skills, you have the ability, you can do it. No, it was not. It's not that I achieved that I was given the name because I had the qualities or that. It's because of through the it's just the black letters on white paper that identified me. And other than that, otherwise, I don't have any qualities of abandonment or realization or any power of wisdom, love, or power. And so, for that reason, when I talk about teaching the Dharma, because I'm a little bit embarrassed to teach the Dharma for that reason, and I'm reluctant to teach it. And so, as much as I can, I try to teach less Dharma and give fewer apartments and give fewer instructions. And the reason is that if you are not someone who has real practice, then if you try to teach the Dharma to others, then it's nothing more than dry words. And also, when I teach the way I teach the Dharma, sometimes people have different opinions about about the teaching, and so for that reason, uh, there are different opinions. Some people say I teach the Dharma fine, some say it's not okay. So these different opinions can happen. During the time of Mikyo Dorje, in his collected works, it does say that there are some people, and in his instructions, it says that people did have this opinion that he did not teach the Dharma well. And so this can happen, particularly now in the 21st century. we have independence of thought. And and it's a time when people consider independence of thinking to be extremely important, and critical thinking be very important. And so for that reason, people discuss their own various opinions and discuss various things. And this is just the way things are in this time. And if we don't do that, then we wouldn't really be able to work in this time. It's, and so when I think about it in this manner, no matter what I'm not really certain what it is I should be doing. First, before I even teach anything, there are many different situations. So the question is, should I teach, or should I need to teach, or what should I do? I have different thoughts, so I have different things. So I thought, well, maybe I should do a divination. But if I do a divination to find out should I teach the Dharma or not, but at any rate, that's how it is. 'His Holiness is speaking about the sound. And so for that reason, for today we will do as we planned before. We'll we will continue the teachings. We'll continue that today. For tomorrow, tomorrow we'll take a look and see how it is. I'm not sure whether I'll teach or not tomorrow. If I give the transmission, then it's fine. I took this in front of from various Rinpoches, and since I had this opportunity to receive it, if I give the transmission from the Rinpoches, I don't have anything. There's nothing better that I could do. Although my reading is not so good, and I don't feel that I can not so comfortable about that. So I'll figure out what to do tomorrow. But at any rate, and today is just a beginning. I think I will, as a sign, because of interdependence, I will just recite a little bit today. Now here, the place we're picking up is from the profound and vast light, instructions on the two types of bodhicitta, the meaning of prajnaparamita as described by the founders of the two traditions. This is on page 263 of the first volume of the Varanasi edition. His Holiness is now giving the transmission of the text here. It begins with a prostration to Nagarjuna Nasanga. So imagine first that all sentient beings fill space, that you are in your normal place, and in front of you in the sky is the Mikya Dorje and so forth. This is the description of a meditation. Meditation about imagining the gurus in front of yourself and thinking of all the suffering of sentient beings and supplicating them. We have no other help than you, lamas, it says. Free us from the ocean of samsara. Bring us to the protection of nirvana. And as you supplicate the root and lineage lamas, you supplicate each of the lamas in turn, and then they dissolve into each other. They dissolve into your root lama, who then dissolves into you as a globe of light, and mix, and his body, speech, and mind mix inseparably from your own. And rest with that thought, and then at the end, gather the devotee. Dedicate the individuals. Then another one is to again visualize the lamas from the Shakyamuni Buddha to your root lama. Beneath that there is Asanga and Vasubandhu, Stiramati and so forth, as well as Atisha and other masters of the Tibetan and Indian traditions. Potawad, Shashangwa, Dusum Kempa, and Dusum Kempa visualized in the form of Chenrezig, with one face and two arms. His left in the mudra of generosity, the left holding his thumb and ring finger together. Here, this is a description of Chenrezig. Wearing his ornaments and robes, the antelope Krishnasada skin over his left breast. We supplicate a root lama in the form of Chenrezig to take care of us, to accept us with compassion. We supplicate them as before, and then rest in the supplicate them as before. Here's another visualization of all the lamas of the lineage from Vajradhara through Tilopa Narava wearing the Indian robes, Marpa in lay clothes, Milarepa, Gampopa, Dusum Kempa and so forth, surrounded by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We supplicate as before, and then we rest in non-thought. and dedicate the virtue of the virtue that was. We supplicate them, make offerings, and think about the suffering of all sentient beings. When we have this fervent devotion in our breast, and then at that point we're able to see the whatever the Lama does as being the deed of the Buddha and as seeing the qualities. We everything we think of, every time we think of him, we get goosebumps in our tears, and tears flow down our face. When we have such devotion, then we rest relaxed within that. So here the main thing is very clear. The main thing here is the lamas of the lineage of the Bodhisattva vow, or of the stages of path. It's visualizing these lamas. That is the primary aspect here. And so in order to increase our bodhicitta, we then visualize the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and supplicate them. And what it's saying in here is that without day or night, that everything we're doing, we need to have the unbearable compassion for all sentient beings. And when we talk about this, we talk about compassion. We talk about great compassion. We need to develop, in order to have bodhicitta, we need to have great compassion. And there are many great benefits to great compassion. There are a lot of discussion about whether the listeners and self-Buddhas have that. Generally, it says that there's a difference between limitless compassion and great compassion. Limitless compassion is compassion for all sentient beings. And great compassion is great compassion is compassion focused on all sentient beings without any left out. And so then there's questions of whether the listeners and self-Buddhas have such great compassion or not. Some say they do, and some say that they do not. When if we have the great compassion that focuses on all sentient beings without one left over, it is said that they have these. They do have that. The listeners and self-Buddhists do have that, but they do not have the great thought of taking on the burden of all other sentient beings. So now saying that they have the compassion, then it is very important. For example, when we talk about may all sentient beings be free of suffering causes, it's not enough for it just to be a mere aspiration in the mind. May it happen is not enough on its own. It is not okay just to have that wish in our mind. What we actually need to have is the special motivation, the special intention, the wish to take on the benefit. I am going to remove the suffering of all sentient beings. I shall do this. If we say, may they all be, if we just sort of put a limit to it, and it's not just putting a limit and saying, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. If all sentient beings could be freed from suffering just by an aspiration, that would be great, but they can't. We have to put the effort into freeing all sentient beings from the suffering. And so for the effort, we have to put the effort, we have to put in the work ourselves and say, I am going to do this. And the thought, I am going to do this, in order for it to develop that really strong, then we have to think about the different sufferings. We need to know the suffering that sentient beings experience. And so for that reason, the different types of suffering, sufferings of the 6 beings of suffering, sufferings. There's three different of suffering: the suffering, the suffering of change, and the all pervasive suffering of formation. We need to think about all of these, and so for that reason, Milarepa said. He said, when great compassion arises, it's like we're in the midst of fire. For example, what this means that when Milarepa if we had that real uncontrived devotion or compassion for sentient beings arise in ourselves, the feeling that we have is like we're in the middle of a pit of fire. For example, if we are if we're all surrounded by inescapably by fire. Now, if you're in that situation, you wouldn't be able to bear it for even an instant. We'd immediately try to get out in that very instant. Immediately, we would try to get out of that suffering, to free ourselves from that pit of fire. And when we have such uncontrived devotion or devotion from the depths of our heart, then that suffering is a suffering that has such strong fervor, such fervent compassion. But it's difficult for us to develop such compassion. So just from orally we say, may all sentient beings be happy and be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. But at the time that we're saying that, the way that we're thinking of it, and at the very least, at the very least, the expression of our body, it should be something. It's like as if we cannot bear it. We need to look and see. We can have to look and we can examine ourselves at the time and see whether we actually have that compassion. But it's difficult. And so just saying from the mouth and thinking about it, saying it orally with our mouths, and may all sentient beings be free of suffering. Think about this is very good. This is wonderful. But when you think it, it's a responsibility we have to take on ourselves. And we need to put great effort into it. We have to put special effort into it. And it is extremely important for us to do that. And if we do not do that, then it is very difficult for us to have great compassion. And so for that reason, at this point, when it says, I'm talking about great compassion, and great compassion is making that a responsibility, and with a great fervent devotion for the lamas then we try to develop this compassion. Now here is another question, another meditation here, visualizing that we are in the middle of charnel grounds, the 8 worldly concerns. We imagine that in the middle of this is Sangye Nyempa, meditating upon the repulsiveness, asking us to grant us the supreme and ordinary cities. We imagine. And so we supplicate him, and then just the way Sadhupararudita served Chapak or Nelopa underwent the 12 trials at the hands of Maropa, we imagine that we are offering things to the Lama and the jewels. And we think that this is, and we dedicate it in order to bring all sentient beings to enlightenment. We think that we have to do everything we can for others. We think that we see that we have no leisure because of death and impermanence. We see that gain and respect have no meaning. And that no matter what we do for the sake of this life, we have great revulsion for all of that. And so it's important for us to develop great devotion for the Lama. So what it is saying in this section is, it's just talking about the main points of Guru Yoga. Mikya Dorje. The root Lama of Mikya Dorje was the first Sangye Nyempa Rinpoche. Sangye Nyempa was the guide for Chodak Gyatso's horse, and so he was very modest, and he had not understood. And he would avoid a retinue. He would always drink only the leftover tea. He did not eat much food. He only had the leftover tea, and so for that reason he became a little bit blue in color. And so everyone called him they called him black and blue. Everyone always called him sort of black and blue nyempa. So this black and blue nyempa was the root lama of Mikya Dorje. Most of the teachings of Mikya Dorje, from the and in all of the treatises that he wrote, all begin with the word I prostrate to the Mahasiddha Sanjay Nyempa. Now he only served him for 3 years. But if we're talking about Sanjay Nyempa we're talking about the effect that he had, or the blinabs, the blessings, these came from Sanjay Nyempa. Otherwise, when you think about it, there were four great masters. There were Tulmo Tashi Wezar, and likewise Chudrup Sengye, the great master Chekanji Chudrup Sengye. The third would be Karma Chinepa. These are considered to be his tutors or his masters. But sometimes he makes refutations, and he says, "My Lama Karma Chinepa said this, but it is not tenable." And so Dulmo Tamshi Wezer, he made a refutation of Dulmo Chuje in one text. But for the Mahasiddha Nyempas, he held them as authoritative as the words of a Buddha, and there is absolutely no refutations of them, or no question of whether they're tenable or not tenable. He made no presentations of this at all. So he had really extraordinary devotion for him. And so when we have the Guru Yoga that is related to this, what it says is, your own body, speech, and mind, along with all of your possessions and your roots of virtue, offer to the Lama as an offering. And after you make an offering of these to the Lama, may this be think that this is for the benefit of, you dedicate it so that all sentient beings may achieve liberation and omniscience. So you're on then you also matter to offer. So you offer the body, possessions, and virtue to the sentient beings, and then you dedicate that offering to all sentient beings. And so there's not even a slightest selfish instant or personal aim in this. It's all entirely for the precious jewels, or for the sentient beings. If you can give it all to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and for the benefit of all sentient beings, if you're able to do this entirely, then no matter what you can do, whatever you do, you will be able to use it for the direction of virtue. Then you will be able to use it for the. Now, if we have our wild means, no matter how is it we aren't able to use our beings for the benefit of sentient beings. We might think that we should do benefit sentient. Something for the benefit of sentient beings. We meditate on loving kindness and compassion. But no matter how much effort we put into such meditation, it does not turn out the way we expect. In any case, it is for the attachment to this life, and it is because we're not able to give up the attachment and fixation on this life. And so for that reason, if we give our body possessions, and without even the slightest bits of fixation or attachment, giving up on everything for the benefit of all of our parents, sentient beings of the six realms. And so for their benefit, if we use it, if we are able to do this entirely, then we'll be able to apply our mind towards virtue. Another method that of serving the Lama is with goods, respect, service, and practice. So making offerings, paying respects, service of massage and so forth, and practices to do what the Lama, what the Guru says. When we talk about the method of serving the Guru, we can serve the Guru through offerings, through respect, through service, and through practice. There are these different ways of serving the Lama. So these different manners of serving the Lama through materially is to give the Lama the necessities for the Lama to eat or drink, or the Lama to wear. My time is it's already 4:30, isn't it? So if it is offering all the things that they need. Respect means prostrating with humbly, speaking politely and honorably, and so forth. Service means offering, giving medicines that will help the body, or massages, or so forth. Rubbing oil into feet, and so forth. So we normally, when we think about service, when we talk about accomplishing service, there's an instruction. There's a dictionary, dictionary of Tibetan archaicisms by Shakya Chokden, and within that it says that there's different understandings of Tibetan words. So Kyento, so is describing, so helping in difficult situations is like reciting. We talk about it as service. So these are practices enabled to, or services to, eliminate instructions, and so that often is mistaken for the word rimdro, which means service. So we've given the name service to averting obstacles. So this would be reading texts, offering tormas, and so forth. These should actually be called averting obstacles, whereas services or respect. So the service in that respect actually should mean offering things for the gurus to live, such as washing their feet and so forth. Then the last one is practice. There are two different types of practice. There is the actual practice and the approximate practice. So the actual practice is whatever method the guru taught to achieve Buddhahood and omniscience. Then is to practice that properly as he taught it, just as the guru said. So the approximate is the things that are the methods to do this, even if it's something to do it. But if we are is to accomplish the acts of the Buddha, even if it's not taught as a method for Buddhahood, but in actuality this becomes a way to fulfill the wishes of the Lama, fulfill the commands of the Lama, and so in this way, accomplishing the Lama's command. So it actually means here. So actually, it says explicitly. It says here, fulfilling the Lama's commands, and here, but it says fulfilling the Lama's wishes and so forth. And that is basically what we mean here, what we have here. So the time. So we probably do not have any tea today. So therefore, today as just an auspicious beginning for this, that is enough for today. So the main thing here as you all know, the precious teachings of the Buddha are the teachings of scripture and realization. So studying the teachings of scripture and practicing the teachings of realization we are a method that we do in order to preserve the Buddha's teachings. Other than those two, there is really nothing that we can do. So therefore, we need to study the teachings of scriptures. It is something that we're in the process of doing. What we are studying is we think that if we're studying, we should think that in our study we're doing it in order to preserve the teachings, and so in this way we should have a high aim, and we should make sure that our meditation, that our motivations and our actions are unmistaken, and it is very important for us to do that. Otherwise, when we just get together here, or when we gather here, if we think it's like ordinary people getting together for a few days, we speak a little bit and then leave. It's not like that. In any case, our doing this now is in order for the reason that we're doing this is to preserve the Buddhist teaching. Other than that, the reason to do that is to bring happiness to sentient beings. The teachings of the Buddha are said to be the source of all well-being and happiness. So, well-being and happiness, how do they come about? They come from the cause, virtue. So the result of benefit and virtue. So the cause, virtue, in order to practice this, we need to understand the presentation of virtue and non-virtue. And so in the Buddhist teaching that teaches all sentient beings, this is what virtue is. This is what non-virtue is. And it teaches us the presentation of what we should do and what we should not do. By explaining that, people are able to practice the virtue we should and give up the non-virtue that we must avoid. And so for that, and because of that, we have well-being and happiness. And so for that reason, the upholding and preserving and propagating the Buddhist teachings are in order to bring happiness and well-being to all sentient beings. And so, and if we think the way that we think about it, the way we think and our motivation must be long-term, vast, and huge. Otherwise, it's not something that we're like, having a grudge against some other sort of tradition. It's not to uphold one particular tradition. If we're into things that only the Kamsan teachings should it better. If we think, sometimes we might, if it's not where we're doing this, we are not doing this for the benefit of one lineage or the benefit of one monastery, the benefit of a few teachings. That's not what it is. Actually, it is for the teachings of the Buddha to flourish and spread. And the reason for that, the reason that they must spread is to bring all sentient beings happiness. And so we need to focus on, we need to aim for that reason. So our aim and our intent must be vast. So sometimes when we read texts, our thoughts get more and more narrow. Our hearts get harder and harder. If we do that, then that is not the proper way. Then our study is not appropriate. That is not the way we should think about it. It's a sign that we have made a mistake. And so, for that reason, it is important for us to have. I think it is important for us all to have the appropriate way of considering what we're doing. In the past, thinking about it, in the past we've had difficulties in terms of the financial aspects, but now we don't have such difficulties. And so now, the Tsupuladang, sometimes the Tsupuladang is a sort of difficulty, sometimes it's where we see difficulty, sometimes it's something that we go to do something, but in any case, we are sending, it is providing all of the expenses, it has prepared all of the places for it, and the necessity for sentient beings. And this year, the particular organizer is Lek Shiling, and they have made all these, organized and made all these presentations. No, it's not. It can't be that great because, of course, we are in the places where we, if we look at where we are, we look at we are in a poor area here in Bodh Gaya and Bihar. So we might think that we want to do something really amazing, but we aren't able to do that here. So for these reasons, so we need to do different than from the past. Unlike previous times, we have everything we need to eat, every places we need to see. We have all the facilities that we need. So we have prepared all the external conditions, and so in this situation where you have all of the facilities that you need, we need to use this opportunity well. And as I said before, we need to, the way that the think about things, the way we consider things is important. And our attitude is important. So it's important to keep this in mind. This attitude, the way of thinking, the motivation is very important. If our motivation is mistaken, then whatever it is that we do, it will not turn out well at all. If our aspirations and our hopes, we might think that things start going out well, but in the very end, what happens is it never works out well at all. So it's important for us to have an unmistaken attitude and motivation.